All right. Boober, Boober part one. All right. So let's do the poll. 10 for lovers, 1 for haters. Any tens for Boober? Okay, 9, 8. Not doing good. Okay, Malone, Safin. Okay, 7. Okay, 6. Now here come the haters. 5. Islam. Hot, is that a 0? Hot is just showing her 0 each time. 4. Okay, Nieves. 3. Not good. 2. 1. 0. Hot. Was that you? Okay, we'll start with the haters. Hot and Nieves. Let's hear it.
Do you want me to go first?
Go ahead.
Um, it wasn't a 0 bad. I'm just doing that just to be funny, but I didn't really like understand what he was saying. I kind of got confused at some parts. It also seemed like he was mad. I don't know. I felt like I was getting yelled at.
Okay, it's an unusual experience. Okay, Nieves, you want to add?
Um, yeah, like hot. I didn't really understand him too much, and I I don't know. I think I just liked other philosophers that we've read better than him.
Okay, fair enough. So yes, so is it not possible for you to like someone when you don't understand them? How are you gonna do it when you're married? How are you gonna like your spouse that you won't understand after a few years?
Maybe he did it on purpose.
Yes, exactly. These texts are teaching you how to love the the things that you cannot understand. So yeah, try. I know it's frustrating when you don't understand anything, but try to develop ways of enjoying yourselves even if you don't understand. Dwelling in the mystery of what is being said, right? Good. Let's see a couple lovers. I forgot who you were. Hmm. I think there was Safin up there. Rivera, go ahead, both of you.
I was just gonna say I loved it only because I didn't understand it.
There you go, finally.
Yeah.
That's the idea. Rivera.
I kind of liked it. In a way, I was like, wait, what? And then I started to understand. I'm like, wait, are you trying to explain literacy or English a bit better? Is this like pronouns and nouns or like verbs? Is this like you trying to explain the English language, I guess, a bit better to us? That's what I felt like a teacher having teaching it to students of why it should be this and not this when
Okay,
they're using it in a sentence.
now let me ask all of you, be honest. How many of you listened to the introduction lecture? Put your hand in the screen. Okay, so like half of you. So this might account as to why you are lost when you get to the reading, right? Next time I teach this class, I'm gonna have a quiz for each recording. But yeah, it's very important, guys, that you listen to the recording right before you read because otherwise it's going to be gibberish. And I can bet that half of you understood nothing. Why? Because you didn't listen to the recording. If you listen to the recording, you can then navigate the text better and you get more out of it. Okay, let's get into the text. I'm going to focus actually on page 55 today. So you can already turn there. Okay, before I go there, let me review a little bit what I mentioned in the recording, the introductory lecture. Basically, what Buber is doing in this book, he's addressing a problem which he notices around his time. He's writing at the beginning of the 20th century. This is a time where little by little we're losing the sense of the sacredness of human beings, right? Human beings are becoming more and more, like Kant predicted, means to an end, right? We are using human beings rather than seeing their inherent value. We're losing the sense of what it's like to treat a human being like a human being, right? And you see this, right? Throughout our culture, we have this way of treating each other like things and objects rather than as people, right? If you look just at the way that just corporate, right, the corporate culture, right? The worker is exploited as much as possible to make as much profit as possible, right? This is the trend. So paid as little as possible, the less benefits, the better, right? And then you want to increase the productivity and you want to increase the profit. So the worker is just seen as something that you squeeze the best you can to get the most out of it. You don't see them as needing a quality of life, or you're not seeing people as people. You're seeing people as means for production, right? You're not seeing that the quality of their lives matters. If I may add, right, even in CUNY, right, we have, I think 70% of the professors are paid part-time, even though they work full-time. Productivity over quality of life, right? They're paid less, it's right, the university spends less, but their lives are suffering from this, right? Most of your professors are adjunct professors. I'm just going to be political right now. I'm going to just give myself that pleasure. Right? Anytime you have an adjunct professor, you can be sure that they're working full-time and getting paid crumbs, right? Living under the poverty wage. So this is the culture in America, right? Not only in corporate culture, but also university culture throughout the country. This is the trend. Let's squeeze the workers as much as possible to save money, to not have to spend or to make profit, right? So this is the issue that Buber is addressing, right? Now, even beyond that, right? He's looking at even popular culture. If you just look at the dating culture today, right? You have Tinder and you swipe, right? This one, not that one, this one, not that one. And you can actually, you know, purchase a date for the night. So this is again, right, a very natural first, or when we have when we ghost someone, okay, I'm gonna unfriend them, click, gone. Right? So this whole way, even in our relationships, right? So in the work, in relationships, you know, everywhere we are noticing how more and more we are treating people like objects that are disposable, right? And so we Kant talked about this, of course, but Buber is noticing a rising trend of this in our culture, and that's what he's reacting to. Miran, question?
Wouldn't be surprised if Marx would later use this kind of thinking in his analysis of capitalism. He would probably attribute this to capitalism, specifically the rising nature of it, and like the swiping and the commodification of it and the destruction of the worker would probably be seen as like the means to an endness of human like behavior and lifestyle. The hell we all live would be attributed to late stage capitalism under Marxist philosophy.
Right, absolutely, right. I'm sure Buber is familiar, right, with Marxism, obviously. So, yeah, so for sure, this is in the same line.
I guess I didn't look into the history of Buber much. He's post Marx.
You know what? I actually not sure. Well,
I was thinking Marx took from Buber.
Marx is 19th century, right? And right?
Yeah. Yes.
Buber is 20th. So
got it. So yeah.
Yeah. So he's certainly, everybody's familiar with Marx at that time. So he's certainly thinking along those lines. Yeah. Well put, Miran. Absolutely.
I guess he was trying. I guess like where Marx talks about the more commodification and more of the material aspect of capitalism. Buber is more talking about the soul.
Yeah, he's saying we're losing that, right? We're losing
something. So Marx did. I'm sorry, I'm getting on a diatribe. Marx did, in his early writings, though he was against religion, he was concerned for the soul of the working class in the sense of their lifestyle and their happiness and their contentness and the quality and meaning for their lives.
Exactly, right? So in a way, he's seeing, like in the Kantian language, right? He's seeing people like ends, right? They have their own value, and we need to think of the quality of their lives and not just think of their productivity, right? We, however, in our culture, it's more about even, you know, I'm just talking about the average worker in America doing overwork, sacrificing family for work, doing extra hours because, they have to succeed. Same idea, right? Productivity over everything else. So this is what Marx is noticing. Now this is what Buber is noticing, right? So what he's saying is that we are going more and more towards this objectification of human beings. And this he calls the I-it relationship, where the other person is just an it, or an object, right? And he's saying we're losing the sense of what it's like to genuinely relate to human beings. We're losing the sense of the sacredness of the human being. We're forgetting how to relate to each other as persons. And he calls this type of relationship the I-thou, or I-you, right? Depending on your translation. So this whole book, right, is to help us awaken again and remember what it's like to connect to a human being as a human being and not as an object, right? So today we're going to explore the I-you relationship, and next time we will apply it to marriage. So we'll go more deeper into this type of relationship. But today, generally, we're going to look at what Buber means by the I-you relationship and what we need to remember, what we have forgotten in our relationships with others, and what we need to again start experiencing. So page 55. So today we're gonna work a little bit together. I'm not gonna do the whole teaching. I'm gonna rely on you a little bit, kind of like when we did Rumi, because here we are dealing here with a kind of poetry, which is philosophical poetry. He writes kind of like a poet. All of the words mean something else, right? We have to kind of ponder what he means by certain sentences. So we're gonna work together. I'm gonna read a sentence and I'm gonna ask you, what do you think it means? And we're gonna kind of, explore the text together this time. Okay, first sentence, page 55. Whoever says you, put your hand in the screen if you're there. Okay. Whoever says you does not have something for his object. So this one is obvious. What does it mean? Remind me. When you're saying you to someone, when you're treating someone as a you and not as an it, what you're not seeing them as an object. What does that mean briefly? We've just been talking about that. I want to hear it from you. Okay, Hat, go ahead.
He's saying that you're like digging deeper into their soul, you're not looking at them as a productivity.
Okay, very good, right? You're not seeing just how useful they can be to you. You're seeing more. Okay, let me write this down, right? You're not seeing only, right, how useful they can be to you. You are experiencing more of them, right? So that's Kant, right? This is exactly what we learned with Kant. You're not just seeing them as a means to an end, you're seeing them as having value way beyond their use to you, right? So that's what he means. So this part we know, this is familiar territory. We studied this with Kant. But now, of course, he's going to go deeper, right? So, okay, so let's go to the next one. Next sentence, which is intriguing. And this one I want to spend a little bit of time on because it's an interesting sentence. And it's the sentence, the you has no border. Are you there? Put your hand on the screen if you found it. It's right there in the same paragraph. All right, so let's stop on that a little bit. What does it mean to see someone as not having borders? There are so many ways you can interpret this. So I'm curious as to how you guys will come up with this. What does it mean to see your friend or your spouse or as not having borders? Okay, Hat, you're the first one. Go ahead.
Maybe you're seeing them like free, like maybe aside from when they're being overworked or whatever. Like maybe actually.
So this is not so much about the corporate culture, it's about how you treat them. So what does it mean to see them as free with regards to you? How can you elaborate a little bit on that?
See their soul, I guess, how it affects you.
Stay with the free. That was interesting. What does it mean that someone is free with regards to you? Hat? I'm asking you.
Oh no, I didn't raise my hand. That was from before.
Yeah, I know, but I'm still talking to you.
Okay. You said what I said about being free.
Yeah, so I'm asking you, what does it mean to see the other as free in connection to me, free from me? What does that mean?
How can I explain this? I'm saying like when you're, hanging out with somebody, when you're deep in conversation with them, seeing them at that point,
Okay,
not
all
in any other.
let's see if anyone can help her. What is it? So she mentioned something interesting, right? She's saying the other is free. That's one way to see them as a you, right? No borders, no constraints, right? So what would it mean when I'm connecting to them that I'm protecting their freedom or that I'm respecting their freedom? What does that mean exactly? Let's go a little deeper. I'm bringing it to the class now. See if you can help Hot elaborate a little bit. Miran, you want to try?
Unburdened by their chains when interacting, in the sense that like they aren't holding back. They aren't withholding their vulnerability. They're allowing themselves to be vulnerable to you.
So careful, right? This is about how you treat them, not how they behave with you.
Oh, how you treat them.
You are not the one to say that you has
So more like, better yet, you allow yourself to be vulnerable to them.
How does that connect to them having no borders?
Good point. Good point.
Okay, well, you guys, you got to do better. Harkins. Harkins.
By any chance, does it like you're kind of like respecting them as a human being, like you're not trying to control them, you're allowing them.
Okay, finally, point one. All right, let's write this down. So first of all, you don't use them. That's the first thing we learned, right, just now. Number two, no borders, no limits means you don't control them, right? You don't put a limit on them. You got to do this, you got to do that, right? No limit on them. So give me some examples. Let's stick to the romantic relationship. Give me some examples that we control our partners and our spouses. What are some of the ways that you're going to be tempted to control? Harkins, you want to develop that a little bit?
Like you're not controlling who they may be able to talk to or hang out with.
Okay, that's a big one. I hear a lot about that. Like, yes, everyone checking on, their phones and their Instagram and Facebook, and why are you talking to her? Right? So we tend to do that a lot in the time of social media where we see everybody's conversations, right? There's no privacy anymore. I can check your phone and see everything, everyone you talk to, right? And in a way, letting go of that, allowing them to move without the constraints that you set upon them, allowing them to go where they want to go, talk with who they want to talk to. Very good. I like that one. Okay, let's hear the rest of you. I saw a bunch of hands before. Williams, go ahead. How would you interpret the you have no borders?
Oh, I was gonna say the same thing that I forgot who was talking. The other person said, and there's also this controversy on social media about controlling what the other person wear. So that's a big one as well.
What do you mean controlling the person on social media? Tell me.
No, I'm saying it's a controversial on social media about what somebody else wear is a big thing in a relationship.
Oh, you mean the way that we control each other's media?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, absolutely, right? This is a big thing. So here Buber is saying, right, if you want your partner to be a you, if you want to respect their you, right, you have to step back, let go, relinquish, right, the control. Very good. Safin, go ahead. I saw your hand.
I thought you already answered, but I was gonna say one thing I think Serena was trying to say is like how the other people dresses online and stuff.
Dresses.
Yeah.
Oh, or doesn't dress.
Yeah. Yeah. Mostly that.
Yes, absolutely. We're like, wait a second, why are you wearing that dress up in front of everybody, right? Why are you topless, or why why you're not wearing a shirt, right? And so forth. And not for the woman, the guy, of course.
Why not the woman?
Okay, maybe some women do that, but what would I know? So absolutely, right? We tend to want to control, even not only on social media, right? Even when we go out, it's like, why are you wearing that, right? So we want to control their behavior, their dress, their conversations. And Buber is saying, when you do that, the person becomes your doll, like a doll, right? You want to refrain for the sake of their you-ness, right? Good. Now, there are many other ways that we can see these borders. How else do we put borders around people in general? or boundaries or limitations around people in general? What are other ways that we do this? Hot, go ahead.
Bullying, I guess. Like telling somebody what's wrong with them.
Oh, very good, right? So anytime you insult someone or stereotype someone, right? You are puff, right? Imprisoning them into your insult, right? So yes, we do this a lot. I'm thinking even of like racial stereotypes, right? To be honest, I was shocked when I arrived in Queens a few years ago. And people so freely categorize each other in terms of race. I had never seen this before, right? Um, so this is not something you see so much in Europe where I was before. So here people are like, oh yeah, this white girl or this black guy or this Latino, right? And it's like it's almost natural the way that we divide people into colors, right? And I wonder, right, how if this is not to a certain degree reducing, right? Oh, now they're just white. Now they're just black. Now they're just Latino with all of the stereotypes that belong to that color, right? So we do this, right? We stereotype in terms of race, in terms of gender, so racial, gender, right? Stereotypes are also ways that we miss the you, right? To only see the race of someone or the gender of someone, or to be too fixated on that. You're missing or interpreting everything they do in light of their culture or in light of their in light of their race or in light of their gender. You're missing their uniqueness, right? So I mean, you know, this is here's an example very close to home, right? That I heard from a friend of mine who's Dominican. So he told me that he was dating someone and her family actually advised her not to date him. Why? Because he was Dominican and therefore a cheater, right? So, and he's, you know, anything but that, right? So very often, right, in Queens also, especially, we stereotype certain cultures. Oh, this culture, they're a bunch of cheaters. This culture, they're a bunch of bigots. This culture, they're, right? And we tend to limit our relationships because of these stereotypes, right? Racial, cultural, gender stereotypes. So that's another way that we imprison the you, right? And we don't release the you and see, well, okay, you're Dominican, but maybe you're more than your culture, right? Maybe you're different, right? Okay, great. Anything else? Now, you should be reminded here of what we did with Kierkegaard when we talked about hope. This is very close to what Buber is talking about. How is hope, the way we studied it, how is it a way of taking off the borders off of somebody? Let's see if you can connect the two thinkers. How is Buber here talking about hope, actually? Williams, help us out.
Well, remind me of I think I forgot who he was, but taking out the hope meaning what you think the potential they'll be. So something off those lines. Hoping that they'll be a better person and just seeing something different in them.
Very good. Excellent, right? So the way we act sometimes, right, towards our beloveds, like, oh, they're never going to change, right? And we sink into this despair that they're never going to change. Boom, you've put a border, right? You haven't allowed them the space to maybe become something else, right? Why you decide that they're never going to change, right? So in a way, this discipline, right, the virtue of hope that we learned in Kierkegaard is a way to take out the border and make everything possible, right? At any point, that person could shift dramatically. I don't know, right? It could happen. Let me take off all the limitations I have put on you and see what happens. So very good. So we can add this, right? So let's see. Number 3, hope, right, is a way to allow the person to be something new, right? To transform. And not say, right, they'll never change, right? This is another way to put boundaries, right? Or borders, not boundaries, borders. Okay, anything else? Let's see. Okay, we've covered a lot already. Okay, good. So I hope you're seeing a little better, right? So this is way beyond what Kant said, right? Kant just said don't use, right? Buber is now going much deeper into this, what it means to relate to a person, to relate to a you. And it's really, it's something, I mean, we naturally treat people as it's easy to control. I mean, naturally, right? We want to control, we want to stereotype, and we want to despair of them, right? In general, right? We tend to, this is the things, this is our default, right? So in a way, treating someone like a you necessitates some self-control, some discipline, where you constantly undo, right? These borders that you're putting on, you go and you undo them over and over again, right? Oh, I saw you like a woman and I thought you couldn't do this, or I saw you like a, you know, this type of culture and I thought you would do this, right? We have to constantly clean our minds of these, right, chains that we put on the other. We have to constantly discipline ourselves, work against our natural tendency to lock people in representations, in our controlling attitude and so forth, right? Okay, great. So that one is pretty clear. Now, last one that we read here on page 55. Whoever says you does not have something, he has nothing. What does that mean? That you have nothing. When you're in the presence of a you have nothing. What does this mean? It doesn't sound very appealing. Okay, Hot, and then who else was it? Oh, hold on, Hot. I'm trying to see who else raised their hand. Yes, and Nieves. Go ahead, Hot and Nieves.
So I was actually confused about that part. I think I put it in my in the writing for today's class, but I was confused because is he talking about like the you, like if you are you, then you have nothing in terms of like if you're the person judging other people, you're nothing, or do they mean it if you're being in the position of being judged, then you're nothing?
So be careful. It's that he's talking about you, the self, in relation to a you, right? He's saying whoever says you, so you, right, yourself, in relation to a you, that you, in that you that you're in relation to it, you have nothing. That's what he's talking about. That the self has nothing when they are in relationship with a you. Is that clear, Had?
Yeah.
Okay, so now let's see what it means. Nieves and then Brown, help us out.
I was thinking that you have nothing, meaning like you have nothing to judge them on. You have no expectations you should be putting on them.
Okay, I like that. Back to Rumi, right? So number one, nothing means you have no expectations. Like, oh, you need to be this, you need to be that, right? You have nothing. Or do this or that, right? In a way, you are relinquishing complete control, which goes back to what we said just earlier, right? Very good. Brown, do you want to add?
I'm not sure now because that spins a whole new light on it. Sorry about the camera. No, I felt like he was saying that I am you and you are me. Like we are both the same, and once we apply it to it, and I think I kind of expressed this in the essay, that once you apply it to it, it kind of demeans it. It kind of takes the respect out of it, it dehumanizes the other.
Yeah, so what you're commenting is a quote I'm about to get to. So hold your thought. I'm gonna come back to you. That's exactly what that next quote is about. Good. So let's summarize just before we go there, right? He has nothing, meaning you cannot possess. So it's beyond control, right? You cannot possess somebody and say you're mine. That I think is what he's saying, right? You can never say to someone, right, you're mine. No one, right, can be your possession, right? Remember the girl in the Song of Songs that we studied, right? When she said, my beloved is mine, and then she switched, I am my beloved's, right? She understood that she can't hold this guy. She can be his, she can make herself his, but she can't possess him, right? So ultimately, this is the hardest, right? To realize that even our our partners, our significant others are never our possession, right? They have their own life, their own interiority, their own, right? That's the idea. Okay, so let's go into a couple more quotes away from this page, which is, we'll go in the quote that goes along with what um, Brown said. So first of all, page 62, go there with me. Still talking about the you, right? How to connect to the you. So this is a beautiful quote on the top of page 62. Everybody there, wave at me in the screen. Put your hand. Okay. So he says this here, right? The you encounters me by grace. It cannot be found by seeking. Okay, so especially in romantic relationships, this is interesting. What does it mean? It should remind you of Rumi, by the way. How? How should this quote remind you of what we studied in Rumi? Let's see if you can remember. Nieves, go ahead.
You can't be looking for love. Love kind of like finds you.
Exactly, right? If you're looking for love, you're gonna find an it, right? You can't find the you finds you, right? So anytime you're out looking for love, you might end up with someone, but they're going to have the status of an it, right? If you really want to find if you really want a you in your life, you cannot find the you have to be found by the you. So in a way, now it doesn't mean you sit at home and eat potato chips and watch Netflix, right? It doesn't mean that. You can go out there, you can still, be around people and so forth, right? With a mask, of course. But he's saying, as you're out there, you can't make it happen, right? It will happen or not. It's not in your control. Acknowledging, right, that love is not in our control. We can't make it happen. We can make ourselves available. We can make ourselves open, but we cannot force it, right? And that's a very key element of the you. If you're forcing it, you're in the I-it trajectory. If you really want to have an I-you relationship, right, a romantic relationship, which is an I-you relationship, you have to learn to just make yourself available and open. Of course, you can make a move if you need to make a move, but you can't force it, right? You have to realize that ultimately that presence in your life, that person's presence in your life is a gift. It's not something you can earn or make happen or force, right, or pressure. Right, this is what we're learning here. I thought I saw a hand. No. Okay, now to the quote that I think is what Brown was talking about. Go to the bottom of that paragraph on page 62. It's kind of an enigmatic tongue twister. It says, I require a you. If you're there, put your hand in the screen. Okay, let's go to this tongue twister and see if we can understand it. And Brown, you can usher us in the interpretation. I require a you to become. Becoming I say you. Brown, what does it mean?
I am you and you are me. Like,
yeah. Explain that. I don't get it.
Meaning I am human and you are human. So it goes to the you and I, or I and you, or I and thou type of thing. Good. That's how I interpreted it.
We're on page 62, Williams. Okay, let's go a little deeper, Brown. I require a you to become. What does this mean? That I cannot become until I meet a you. Brown, what do you think? Or Hot, if you want to help Brown.
I was going to say, you can go first.
Okay, Brown first and then Hot. Go ahead.
No, I was saying Hot, help.
Okay, Hot, go ahead. The floor is yours.
So I was going to say, can you repeat what you said before?
Yeah.
Because
what does it mean? I require a you to become. What does it mean that I can only become in the presence of a you? What does this mean?
So I guess like we never really see whether or not what we're saying or doing is wrong until like we meet somebody else who like has like a kind of a clear filter. They're like you start to think like, wow, you kind of become influenced under their presence, but like in a good way, because you don't have that like, the ignorant filter over you where you're like, putting people in a group of like what they should or shouldn't be. So you're kind of, you're clearing yourself of that when you're around that other person. And until you get around that other person and you're around people who are always, objectifying other people, then you're never going to really realize that what you're doing is wrong.
Okay, very good. Brown, do you want to add to that? Build on that.
Yeah, it feels like that quote, it sounds a lot like Kierkegaard, I think, in that manner, where he says, you have to kind of level up in order to
Oh,
meet my standards. You
yeah.
kind of have to be at the same level or the same vibration as I am, if I'm saying that right.
Yes, you're right. You're right. So yeah, both of you are right, right? What you're saying is that the other forces us to rise, right? The other is going to ask things of us that we're like, what? Right? Remember the tree in the drought, and the other is you know, giving you all these problems, and these problems are actually causing you to go deep within yourself and to access this deep source of love and to become more loving, more compassionate, right? Do you see how you are becoming more in the presence of a you? That's what he's talking about here, right? In the presence of a you, we are forced to rise to our best selves. Either the relationship breaks off or we stay and we rise, right? There are two ways to be with people, right? Eventually, right? In the beginning, it's always good, but eventually, at the moment of the crisis, there are two ways to react. Number one, you leave. Number two, you grow, right? So this is what he's talking about. If you stay in the presence of a you and you're like, okay, I'm gonna stick it out, you're gonna grow, right? You have to grow. You have to expand to survive this trial, right? Otherwise, right? So he's not saying stay and be a victim, stay and be a doormat. He's saying if you're gonna stay, become, right? Become more, grow, become stronger, become more loving, become wiser, right? And that's what the you forces me to do, right? As if I'm not in contact with, if I'm only surrounded by it's, people who are always like me and are always fun, and I can, you know, I'm just, there's no problems, they're all like there to make me happy, right? If we're only surrounded by friends that make us feel good and that are, you know, always admiring us, we're not going to grow. The moment you're in the presence of a true you, someone who confronts you, someone who disagrees with you, someone who has their own mind, right? You either will leave because it's hard to be in the presence of a you, or you will grow, right? And that's what he's saying here, right? Becoming I, as I become a true self, as I rise to my true selfhood, I learn to say you. I learn to treat you as a you. So the other thing he's saying here is that as I learn to treat you like a you, I relinquish control. I don't try, I have hope in you. I don't try to, you know, I don't stereotype you. As I'm doing all those things, I am growing. I'm becoming a better person. So in that sense, right, as I'm learning to treat you like a you, I'm becoming my best self. I'm becoming a true I, right? Okay, good. All right, so now we're a little clearer, hopefully, based on this page. What does it mean to treat someone as a you? What does it mean to explore this new way of relating to each other that we're not so used to, right? We tend to be more in the I, it category. So now we're ready for the next step next week, which will be to apply everything we learned here to a marriage in crisis, to a failing marriage. How do we do it? We're going to see. I see a couple questions. Brown and then Hot. Go ahead.
I just wanted to say, and it's funny that you should raise your hand too, Hot. I just wanted to say, I think that's deep. It's very deep.
It's deep, yes.
Yes.
Very deep.
Yeah.
I'm glad you like it. Good.
Yeah, I like that.
We have a taker for Boober. Excellent. Thank you, Brown. I appreciate that. Hot, what do you have to say?
No, I actually had a question. So, like, obviously, when I was reading it, I was confused. Now I understand more. But as we do with all things, when we're confused, we run to Google. And I went to Google and I, like, typed in, like, of course, so what does, like, he mean? And they were giving me that he was referring to, like, religion at one point. Like, he was referring to the you being one with God. You know when he was talking about the 3 spheres? So,
yes,
like...
sure. We can talk about that a little bit. Yes. So for Buber, the IU is not just talking about relationships with human beings. It's also the same relationship we have with God, right? So what he means is that likewise, we have to learn to treat God as a you and not as an it. But very often we treat God as an it. We want God to give us this and give us that and be our friend and be close to us and give us my, give me a parking space and then, help me enter this college and give me a good grade on the test. Pure it. All our prayers, most of our prayers are I-it prayers, right? Very rarely do we see God as a you, as someone that we cannot control, someone that is not just there to help us, someone that is not there to just give us things, but pure presence, right? We don't enjoy God for who he is. We enjoy God for what he has to give us. So most of us, right? I can count on on one hand, right? The people who just enjoy God and not his gifts, right? So Buber is saying likewise in our spiritual connection to God, we're very much I-it. Very rarely do we have an I-you relationship where we just enjoy God without expecting anything. This is very elevated, right, way of being with God, when you just enjoy the presence of God without waiting for him to give you the next thing, right, on your list. So that's the idea here. Does that make sense, huh? Yeah, excellent. Good. Anything else? Any other questions or conclusions before we conclude completely? Okay, great. All right, so next time we're going to study a failing marriage, and you're going to want to be very attentive, since, of course, all of us get to that point, right? There's always that moment where everything falls apart. And at that moment, I want you to remember next time's teaching is going to be very useful to you at that moment where everything starts to fall apart. What do we do? What can be done? So that's for next time. That's next week. All right, guys, I'll stop the recording.